Hello world of YouTube and welcome to another Recontextualized Discography review, the bit where I take a look at a record that an artist has dropped since I've done their new format discography review and put their album in the ranking itself. And if there's any other like little EPs and shit that they dropped, I'll talk about those as well. And today we're going to be talking about the boy, one of the GOATs, Aesop Rock. He dropped a record last year called Spirit World Field Guide. I'm going to put that record in context of the list. But before I do that, I'm going to break down his EP, Freedom Finger, the soundtrack he did for the game, because I never really talked about that, and I have listened to it. So let's go ahead and do it. Now, I actually like a lot of the sounds on this EP, and it's funny because when he was doing one of his Instagram live Q&As, he talked about, or somebody asked about the Freedom Finger EP and asked if it factored into the sounds in Spirit World Field Guide. And he actually said that he made Spirit World Field Guide first, and then he made the soundtrack to this game. Which is interesting, because a lot of the ominous sounds on Play Dead really factor into the soundscape of Spirit World Field Guide. And even the digital textures on Calp kind of fit some of the digital textures on Spirit World, and also kind of feel like it's inspired a little bit from the Malibu Ken project, which Malibu Ken I didn't talk about on the discography review proper because it felt more like a collaborative piece. I think I talked about that on the discography review proper, but I didn't put that in there because it's similarly to like his project with Rob Sonic or his project with Kimya Dawson that just didn't feel like it fit his titular himself discography. But it definitely feels like he's sort of planting, or sort of factoring those sounds into something different. I like a lot of the instrumentals on here. I actually really love the groove on Drums on the Wheel, and again, that atmosphere on You're Dead, or Play Dead. And it feels like a nice little offshoot adjacent piece from Spirit World Field Guide, if anything. And it's similarly to his other EPs I've talked about. It's a decent little listen, nothing too dazzling, just a cool, more little Aesop flavor for you. Now the record itself, it may seem weird to put it above None Shall Pass, because None Shall Pass slaps. It's got a lot of really good tracks on it, but if I'm looking at it in context of his discography, I like it more than None Shall Pass, because while None Shall Pass is easily one of his more accessible pieces, this feels like another essential stepping stone record in his discography. You know, if you got into his stuff through like The Impossible Kid or even Skeleton, and you want something a little more ambitious, Spirit World Field Guide is another incredible record in his discography in that regard. You know, he takes the sonic palette of The Impossible Kid, those digital synths, and finds ways to flesh out those sounds on tracks like The Gates and Gauze and on Salt, while also finding ways to inject just his general vibe as an artist and being a little weirder. Stuff like weird time signature tracks, like I think 1 to 10 is spent in a weird time signature, and getting a little more conceptual with the whole Spirit World Field Guide sort of mantra that carries throughout the record and sort of feels very, again, similarly to Labor Days, just sort of about stuff that ties under the same umbrella. This is probably his most conceptual record since Labor Days, but it's a little longer. It's got a little more than it wants to do spread out on. It's got an atmosphere. It's got a tone it wants to set and carry you through it throughout its runtime. And I really respect that ambition, and I think that that's also why I like it more than None Shall Pass. But I don't like it as much as Skeleton or The Impossible Kid, because I feel like those are just so concise. Such a concise listening experience. You know, I like a lot of this record as a whole, and I like that he not only does the thematic stuff, or even have tracks like Dog at the Door that just tie into the overall eeriness and this of what the Spirit World Field Guide could have, or have this general, again, sort of field guide feel with tracks like Gauze and Coveralls, but also finds ways to continue what he did on The Impossible Kid with some personal stuff like Pizza Alley. Or to even get hyper-specific and idiosyncratic like on Flies, which is just about fruit flies. Or hell, even take a track like Button Masher, which doesn't tie into the general themes of the project, but paints a picture in a very Aesop Rock storytelling sort of capacity that, again, also gets a little reflective and allegorical to his own ways, similarly to Pizza Alley, like I mentioned before. I really enjoy that. And I like that he's still finding ways to use music as therapy in his own obtuse sort of way. And I really appreciate that. But it's just, it's not as tight. It's not as tight as other two records. And that's why it's kind of sitting in this point in the ranking. And again, I feel like this is, if you like those records, or if you want a good gateway into his much more obtuse, stylized stuff, this is a great record for that. You know, and if you like this record, if you like the vibe, if you like the lyrical threads, I would even jump off into stuff like Labor Days or Float, or even Bazooka Tooth. You know, stuff that's a little more obtusely constructed than those other records. If you like None Shall Pass and you've got into his other stuff, I would still just get to this record eventually, because it's got bangers, it's got really cool production styles, and it's got some cool topics that I think are really good, and just a good another notch on his belt, if anything. You know, this is another great notch on his belt for what it provides for the listener. You know, and I dig it. I dig this record a lot, and it's not my favorite, but I still think it's up there for an incredible slice of this dude's discography. And it's great that he's been doing it for this long, and he can still create really unique or really fun listening experiences for fans like myself. And that's it. That's my Aesop Rock discography review recontextualized. What did you think about it? Did you like what I had to say? Did you disagree with my placement of it in his general catalog? Let me know in those comments down below. Can't believe I just forgot to say this, but if you like this video, be sure to give it a like. If you want to see more of my music, gaming, and general nerdy content, be sure to subscribe. Special thanks to my patrons. If you want to join their ranks to get early access to content, exclusive content, or to help drive the community, it's linked in the description. You'd think I had never done this before. But I'm going to get out of here. I've been Valrak. You guys are good at live situations, and I'll see you another day.